question period. Période des questions. Senator Platt.
Leader, during question period last Thursday, I asked you about the leak to the CBC concerning the economic cost of carbon tax. This is information the Trudeau government has desperately been trying to hide from Canadians. The CBC reported the carbon tax is costing our economy $20 billion. Leader, I should have known better than to ever trust the CBC, the government's sponsor in the media. The true number adjusted for inflation, Leader, is $30.5 billion per year. Even the CBC didn't want to report that.
$10 billion here. That
works out to around $1,800 for every single family in our country, Leader. How could the Prime Minister and his radical Environment Minister be so reckless with our economy, and why have they been hiding it?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. They are neither reckless with the economy nor hiding. Fact remains that a full, proper analysis of the PBO report and of the government's full analysis of the costs and benefits of its carbon pricing regime demonstrates clearly that, on balance, the tax on pollution carbon pricing regime addresses in an economically effective way and in a responsible way the actual costs to our country, indeed our planet, of climate change. The government has released data that confirms that pollution pricing will not only help us reach our climate goals and account for 1/3 of our overall reductions in emissions by 2030, it also shows that acting significantly outweighs the cost. Climate change is set to cost the Canadian economy $35 billion by 2030, leaving further generations the costs to bear.
Whose calculator have you been using? The incompetent Prime Ministers or the radical Environment Ministers? Minister Guilbeault knew all along that the carbon tax was economic vandalism. That's why he put a gag order on the Parliamentary Budget Officer, forbidding him from exposing the real numbers, Leader. Leader, why is this radical and secretive Environment Minister still in Cabinet? If he won't step down, Leader, why doesn't the Prime Minister fire him?
Senator Gold.
No amount of slurs that you can manage to squeeze into your question is going to change the fact that, first of all, the Minister of Environment has the confidence of this government. Second, that as I just said, and it will continue to say, the overall cost of doing nothing on climate is enormous, with existential consequences for our economy and for our future. This government is acting again on climate change and will continue to do so.
Senator Husakos.
Senator Gold, you and your government knew all along how devastating this tax has been on individual Canadians in our economy. You knew the Trudeau government lied about it and covered it up, and you refused conservative efforts to give Canadians even a speck of relief so families can enjoy a bit of a vacation this summer. Minister Holland even demonized hardworking Canadians for wanting to take a road trip this summer when they can't afford anything else after 9 years of this Trudeau government. You lied about Canadians getting more back in rebates than they were putting out. The PBO made it clear. You lied about the negative impact on our economy. The PBO makes it clear. And you tried to destroy the credibility and integrity of that public servant willing to tell the truth, because that's what your government has continuously done to people who stand up to do the right thing. They seek to destroy them. Will you finally do the right thing and axe the tax and give Canadians a break?
Senator Gold.
Well, all roads seem to lead to your same rather tired exhortation, Senator Husakos. I am not going to repeat or use the same language that you used to misrepresent, fundamentally misrepresent, not only smear the integrity of public officials and government alike. I'm not going to use that same language, but you are knowingly misleading this chamber for strictly electoral partisan purposes. And if that is what you believe the role of the Senate should be, and that is clearly by your behavior, by one's actions, one knows oneself, then we can respectfully disagree. I'm hoping that the Canadians who are watching this and that the members of this chamber think that we have more important things to do than simply parrot electoral talking points for electoral partisan purposes.
What Canadians are tired of, Senator Gold, is this government standing in the way of Parliamentary Budget Officer who's telling the truth. That's what they're tired of. Or a motion in the House last week that required the Trudeau government to turn over all data showing that you knew all along how devastating this tax has been to the Canadian economy. Data that Minister Guilbeault tried to cover up before attacking the PBO when he tried to expose the truth. And by the way, the PBO is hired by this government. Senator Gold, why hasn't Mr. Guilbeault been fired? Or is that only reserved for people that tell the truth by this government? Why doesn't your government respect the findings
Senator Houssakos, j'aimerais bien que vous respectiez.
Senator Houssakos, I would please like you to respect the fact that I'm standing. Senator Gold.
The Government of Canada stands by its analysis that the actions that it's taking to combat climate change through, amongst other things, a price on pollution, are responsible and prudent measures, and that, again, you're misrepresenting the position of the government does not do Canadians any service whatsoever.
Senator Carignan.
Senator Carignan. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Leader, last week, following pressure from the Conservative Party, the government finally unveiled the figures on the economic impact of the infamous carbon tax. The tax will cost the Quebec economy $5 billion and the Canadian economy $30.5 billion. These figures were provided to the Parliamentary Budget Officer on the condition that he would not reveal them. Senator Gold, why did the government insist on silencing the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who is an officer of Parliament? Was it because you're afraid of the truth? Senator Gold. No, as I explained. Thank you for the question. What was given to the Parliamentary Budget Officer was not a fulsome study. If I understood properly, it was just the figures that spoke of one aspect, and one aspect alone, of the situation regarding the price on pollution. As the Parliamentary Budget Officer noted in the National Post today, the PBO wasn't forbidden of disclosing some information. It's just that there was some information that was part of a study, did not provide a full picture, and that's why it wasn't disclosed. Senator Carignan, so you're confirming now that Stephen Guilbeault not only hid the truth from Quebecers and Canadians, but he lied to them when he said that the carbon tax would not cost anything and that there would be no economic impact. Will the minister resign, and will he resign? Senator Gold, no, he will not resign. As I said, respectfully, if you add the cost of climate inaction, which would be the cost of axing the tax, as you keep repeating, and if we do not add the money that has been paid back to Canadians, which represents tens of billions of dollars every year, then at that point you would get an appropriate snapshot of the situation.
Yes, Leader. Page 24 of the Liberal Party's 2015 election platform stated, quote, "Government and its information should be open by default. Data paid for by Canadians belongs to Canadians," end of quote. Here we are 9 years later, and the Environment Minister was caught trying to prevent the Parliamentary Budget Officer from revealing the truth about the carbon tax. As well, Leader, you would not commit to table an answer when I asked you last week how many times the PBO and other officers or agents of Parliament had received similar requests of silence from the Trudeau government. Leader, are there any more reports or data sets about the carbon tax your government is hiding from Canadians? Whose tax dollars paid for this information?
Hear, hear.
Senator Gold.
Again, and with respect, I mean, clearly you're entitled to continue to say what you want to say and disregard my answers. But the fact is that the information that was provided and that is regularly provided by the government or is commissioned for the government goes into the analysis of a proper and fulsome, responsible analysis of the costs and benefits. Let me quote from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and I believe it was a quote that he gave at committee today. The government, quote, is not muzzling me. Obviously, I was making a reference to data that was provided to me and my office that the government or Environment and Climate Change Canada.
See that?
Senator Martin.
Well, we can choose to have a different perspective on this, but Leader, how do we square this gag order that Minister Guilbeault placed on the Parliamentary Budget Officer with the Trudeau government's 2015 promise of a government open by default? If transparency and accountability mean anything to your government, how do you reconcile Minister Guilbeault trying to keep this report secret and his attempt to discredit the PBO?
Hear, hear.
Senator Gold.
There's no attempt to discredit the PBO. There was the government has been clear in its analysis and in its conclusions that the price on pollution, when all factors are taken into account, the rebates to Canadians, the investments that are coming into Canada, and the risk of losing capital investment if we don't have a credible climate change, makes this the most market-sensitive and appropriate policy for this government, for any government, for this country.